Hello, hello, and welcome to another episode of the Flying Cat Marketing interview series. Today, I have Thibault Masson, who is a vacation rental, short-term rental industry analyst, a consultant, a property owner and manager, and the founder of Rental Scale Up, which is a news website where you want to go learn about what is happening in the vacation rental industry. Hello, Thibault. How are you?
I'm really good. Thanks for having me. It's super great to be on your podcast and your showing. As I told you, I really like what you do. I think it's going to be helping so many of your listeners. So it's great.
Yeah, I'm really excited to have you on and about what we're going to be talking today, covering today, because there's a lot to cover. There's a lot going on in the market. And we were just having such an interesting little chat right beforehand, and something that you did cover on Rental Scale Up, talking about, what are these big OTAs doing right now in marketing, in branding. So let's talk a little bit about Vrbo. Vrbo's rebranding. Can you tell us about that and what the implications are?
Sure. I mean, on rentalscaleup.com, what's been very interesting over the last month, we've been covering Vrbo's rebranding, basically repositioning, and then they went on the attack mode. So let's first cover that. So I mean, for the company is like 25 years old. Vrbo was created 25 years old, which is, Airbnb is what, 10 years old? So yeah. It's an old company. What's very interesting with Vrbo is that at some point they were acquired by HomeAway. And there's an entity called the HomeAway Group that started doing a very interesting move, which was to acquire all the biggest listing sites in major countries. For example, Vrbo in the US, or Thibault Direct in Germany, Abritel in France, and Holidays as well, or Top Rural in Spain, or Honest Direct in the UK. So they went after number one, number two websites. And then what they did with these websites, they ported them, they put them on the same tech platform, right? So basically, it's like these ice cream brands you have in Europe. You think they're all different because they're different names. But actually, it's always the same ice creams from one country to another. You know what I mean? If you travel to Europe, it's the same sign. It's a different name, but you just open the package, it's the same thing. So if you're a host, for example, on these different platforms, you could list with one of these websites and be available, listing with Abritel in France, and you would be available on Vrbo in the US because it's just the same platform. So then HomeAway got acquired by Expedia. And Expedia by itself, positioned with so many brands, right? And if you have different brands, you have to invest in each and every brand. Maybe you know that, right? So it's like branding is very important, but it means at some point when you have companies like Airbnb competing with you or Booking.com competing with you, they have like global resources. Very simple, but you have to come up with one logo and it's the same all over the world. And you can give that to your team. You don't have to adapt. You have to adapt all the marketing materials. Again, if you explain to hosts that you have a global network, on Airbnb say, list on Airbnb and you're available around the world. On Vrbo, I tell you, list on Vrbo and you're available on this and that, different names. You're like, why? But at the same time, in Europe, like for example, in France, a market I know pretty well, because I'm French, Abritel is such a strong name. So killing a brand that's successful, very successful in a country, that's very tricky. And that was the case like in France, for example, but also in Australia. HomeAway had acquired Stays, which is a very big name in Australia. So what did they do? So they first decided to say, let's pick one name at least in the US. In every market where we're not, or where the brand is not strong, we're going to roll out Vrbo. So that's what they did last year. They killed HomeAway in the middle of the pandemic. It was crazy. They killed this very well-known brand they had invested so many on. They discovered that people knew the brand Vrbo much more than HomeAway, so they killed HomeAway. And then in a lot of in countries like Mexico, for example, where the brand was not available before, they rolled out Vrbo Mexico. So interesting move. Yet what they said, they're keeping the brand, I guess for the moment, but they keep the brand, strong brands in France, for example. Abritel is still around, whereas in the UK, HomeAway UK became Vrbo. So rebranding, trying to regroup stuff. And what's very interesting too, they really realized that they had to compete with Airbnb, right? So trying to have, just like Airbnb, a brand. But also, they realized that they could not compete with everything Airbnb was doing, right? They came back to basics, right? And they went back to their product. What is Vrbo strong at? And what's different from Airbnb? Well, they realized that, okay, they're an older company. Okay, they're present in the older markets, in the traditional vacation rental markets, sea, mountain, rural markets. So they missed the whole wave of, like, urban apartments, people starting out on Airbnb, putting their place, like in Barcelona, Amsterdam, with these big things. They missed out on this, right? But yet, that's interesting. That was a disadvantage that it turned into an advantage. Okay, we don't have that, but maybe we don't need to have that, right? What we have is actually a supply of entire homes, not share spaces, which are pretty large. I mean, I think more than 70% of the supply on Vrbo has more two bedrooms and more. And they are in these areas which are not urban, which means in terms of, for example, regulations, they don't have not as many issues as Airbnb has, for example. So they said, okay, that's what we're stronger. So you know what? Let's look at who we're welcoming. Well, we're very good at welcoming big families and groups. And so that's why they're repositioning them really well. They talk about they're all for families and groups. And for example, all the little tools they're developing on their website is to help families pick the right place, even like share places among each other, vote for a place. So it is interesting because they rebranded. They really said, okay, maybe we have some disadvantages. We're weak in some points. Let's make it a strength. This is what we're about. We don't care about the rest. And the pandemic arrived. It's kind of what we all want. We all want to be with our family outside of the city. And, there's a few of us there. So maybe we need more than 2 bedrooms. Like one can work, the other one can be with a baby. So it was also smart move, but also some luck that the new brand, the new positioning matches with what people wanted.
So the branding that you're talking about, inviting families, that's branding towards the guests. But they also did some work, at least repositioning themselves for the hosts, right? Going after the Airbnb super hosts. Tell me about this move that they're doing.
Yeah, so you mentioned the word host. It's very important here because until late last year, if I were listing my place, I've places listed on Vrbo, I was called a partner. Now they call me a host.
Okay.
Guess who made the whole word host popular? So it's interesting. So if you are a challenger, you want to sort of use the leaders' words and brands. So they went after hosts, right? So you're hosting. So for example, they rebranded their premier partner program into premier hosts for the best partners, which are now hosts. And what they did this year, which is very interesting, they are clearly going after Airbnb hosts. And this you can see it in different ways. So if you have a product, think about it, right? So you want to go after a competitor. And what they want to do here, if you're going after a property owner, you don't necessarily want to, let's put it differently. It's not like a religion, right? Sometimes people want to convert you into another religion, so you have to give up one religion to go after another religion. It's tough. It's a big effort to convert you, right? Either to give you a lot of money or to force you in one way or another, or I don't know. Here, they don't want to convert you. They say, try Vrbo. List your place also on Vrbo. So what they do, they've released, for example, 3 commercials available on YouTube, and we covered that on Rental Scale Up. And they tell you, basically, if you are not listing with Vrbo, you're missing out. because Vrbo hosts are making twice as much money as Airbnb hosts. So they're naming Airbnb in these YouTube ads, which is, I guess, it's maybe American. In a lot of maybe some countries in Europe would be tricky to do, but here it's clearly a challenger strategy. You're an underdog, you're naming the leader, and you see you do it better. It's like Avis versus Hertz, for example. So they're doing better. Again, it's interesting. It's a 25-year-old company saying that to the host, right? That they do a better job at making you money than the 10-year-old company. And so it is interesting. And what they do as well, again, think about it. If you have another product, they help you onboard with the Airbnb. So what they do, you could argue it's not scalable. What they do, that you have a team of people whose job is to take sort of your listing on Airbnb, maybe take the photos, take the description, and help you get started fast.
Yeah.
They even have a program. They package this. It's called Vrbo Fast Start. You're even able, when you list your place on a Vrbo, to display the review rating you had won on Airbnb, because you don't want to start cold. It's very hard if you're listing your place and there's no rating. You won't get bookings. It's gonna be super, super long. To get you started, they even allow you to display your rating from Airbnb. I think it's very smart. But what they do, again, they only do this if you have an entire place and if you earned at least $3,000, I think, the year before.
Okay.
So they only do this for people who can earn the money, one, because two, as we just talked about, that's probably costly to them.
Yeah.
So you only do this service to people from whom going to have some kind of ROI. So very interesting. It's a position that's clear. They know who they want. Again, they want the large places, and they are going after these hosts. So it is interesting. It's going to work in terms of volume. I don't know, but look at this. We're talking about it.
Yeah. And it's interesting that they say we make or Vrbo hosts earn twice as much, because, well, I haven't seen where they got this data from. Obviously, they probably took this into consideration, but since they are more in these traditional destinations, and if they're comparing to all the urban destinations over the pandemic, obviously the hosts are going to make more because there were more guests at that time, right? Or are they saying that the same kind of hosts are making twice as much?
No, completely the first one, right? They took the data from the Airbnb's IPO in the S1, where Airbnb was exactly sharing like how much on average a host make. But you're right. If I'm comparing somebody who's a shared spaces and things versus people who have like 10-bedroom villa, or it's just it's skewed. But is it true? Yes, it's true, because again, they don't welcome everyone in this program, right? Yeah. They only want on the biggest places or the one that makes earn money. So it's self-fulfilling in a way, but that's what segmentation is about.
Yeah. I love that. It's good. It's a good repositioning. That's what they talk a lot about in the book, repositioning. I can't remember who it's by, but it's exactly that. Taking either a problem or a position, for example, Airbnb host, I'm not making enough money, and saying, okay, well, my brand is just comparing myself to this other brand. So how can, there's a lot of fragmented tech right now in short-term rentals and hospitality in general. And there are a lot of leaders. I mean, there are so many channel managers, property management software, for example, that are now leading the space. And it's really hard to stand out against them. Is there anything that a new tech coming on, doing going to market, can they learn anything from what Vrbo is doing? How can they?
So yeah, I think it's tricky. There are several things here. Vrbo is in a position that I can talk to a host. I can tell them, stay on Airbnb, but try us as well.
Yeah.
Obviously, when you have some technology like piece of software like a PMS, it's kind of tricky to tell you try us as well, because you can't tricky to have two systems running. And it's so much work to migrate. It's tricky. you could argue that you can say, oh, you have a big company, and we can maybe in one of your subsidiaries, or maybe in one of your regions, we can try out our product. That could be a way to do it. But it is tricky, right? And what we've seen as well is that Vrbo is not afraid of doing stuff that is not scalable, right?
Yeah.
I used to work at Booking.com, and Booking.com would never do something that is not scalable, which is okay, it kind of makes sense to, but on the other hand, you are missing out on this kind of occasion. We're like, you know what, for a sliver of the market, we can make enough money. We can do this, white glove service. We can do this kind of service because these people, they're willing to pay for that. It's like, I have villas in the Caribbean, in St. Bart's. It's an island. We have a lot of luxury villas. We welcome guests at the airport, and we wait for them. And if they're late, we'll be there. We'll drive them to, because it's just worth it. That's what they're expecting, right? Obviously, I wouldn't do this, for a cheap place. I would be renting out, because it doesn't make sense. So here, I think the lesson as well is that if you think that it's worth it, maybe you can also do some non-scalable stuff for onboarding. And also, especially if you're a new company, it's really a case where you're learning a lot about the pains of your own product, because it's not until you, for example, try to upload dozens of property into your product that you don't realize maybe some pains that there are on your funnel, in a sync funnel, right? Because it's very tricky. You have to use your own product. And in this case, if you're not a property manager yourself, you have not gone through the pains. And that's in terms of positioning, that's what you often hear some channel manager or PMS say, oh, we've been conceived by property managers. We are property managers ourselves, because for them, that's easy. So as something to know, so even the onboarding manually, it's not scalable, can be a good occasion to see bottlenecks in a thing. And last thing to think about for Vrbo, again, is the segmentation. Okay, maybe they're not good with urban short-term rentals, and that's not what they're about. But you know what? Then they discovered that maybe they are good for big places, and that's what they went full on this. So, can your product serve a part of the market better than another? Should you care about serving this other part of the market? For example, if you target both property managers and individual owners, these are probably very different people in terms of persona, or in terms of needs, or in terms of number of times they're going to be calling you, right? We all know that someone with one property may call you as much as somebody with way more, right? So in terms of revenues of ROI, it doesn't make sense. We saw an example of Vrbo. If you didn't earn $3,000 last year with Airbnb, they're not going to do this manual onboarding. That does not make sense. So, and they're clear it should be an entire home. So again, it's classic. It's not reinventing the wheel here, but it's like classic things. For example, some products are really well developed for the US, some operational software, for example, but they probably don't handle multi-currency really well, multi-language really well. So it's going to be very hard for them in some part of Europe. So have you already, before going after this whole, conquering the whole European market, maybe there's like still more room in the US, for example, or extend to Canada could be the first place to go. So again, it's like, where are you strong at, and maybe focusing on that part of the market.
Niching down is so important. And I love what Vrbo is doing here. They're actually really smart. They've been around for so long. So that has helped them. Being around for 25 years is what has helped them understand, okay, this is the market that we're good for. So they have that already set. And then on the other hand, now they're approaching this rebranding as if they were a brand new company. So they're positioning themselves in a way that is coming new. They're getting rid of those other big brands and just saying, okay, we're going to go full in on Vrbo. We're going to do stuff that doesn't scale.
And something to note, Maeva, here, so to cut you off here, is that yet something that happened last year with property owners and managers, it's like about a year ago, like in mid-March 2020, there was this wave of cancellations, right? Suddenly, like Airbnb Booking, for example, said, even if guests had a non-refundable policy, we're going to cancel these things. And owners, managers, you're going to have to pay back. So a lot of owners and managers, like, we cannot have a contract here. And you just like, just like walking over us. And we're in a moment where we need cash flows. It's absolutely terrible. Vrbo HomeAway didn't do that. They enforced the existing policies. Of course, what they did, they said, hey, dear, at the time, partners, not hosts, can you try to be flexible? And if you're flexible, if you do let people cancel, if you do refund them, we're going to uprank you in the future. We're going to reward you for being flexible, but we're not forcing you. So it does mean, though, that in the mind of a lot of people, that it's, even though the brand changed in a way, or they are repositioning themselves, or they're reaffirming, let's say, who they are, this is core trust that is there. So it's very interesting, because it does mean that even if you're going after like new hosts, for example, on Airbnb, you're not betraying people who have been with you for years. So you are also starting out with a strong base. So it's also interesting that, in the sense that it's also easier to do this kind of thing. If you're starting from a good point, you can say, well, you're going to get more money. And by the way, we don't change our rules in the middle of the game, especially when you are in a bad situation. So I think it's also very interesting what it says about your value and what you should change or not change. And again, in times of crisis, that's where people will remember that. And it's, if you go on forums, you probably see that, this what Airbnb did versus Vrbo. So
it was a big deal. And I think it also pushed the direct booking movement forward. Everybody was like, okay, I do not want to be reliant on Airbnb because they really screwed us over. And now everybody wants to get in direct booking. But it sounds like Vrbo is also being smart about that, saying, well, we're another channel.
You want to diversify away, try us.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Try us.
It's brilliant.
And what they do, again, they don't just like make you join, right? They help you on board, and they help you display your rating so that you are successful on the platform fast. So you're not disappointed and you don't churn. So it's like you want to onboard special people, and you really make sure you put your best team, customer service team, after them, and you sort of make sure they succeed. Even if it means like upranking them for some point, you really want to make sure they think, because again, the more bookings they get, it means less availability in bookings Airbnb will have, right? So it's really important as well to make them loyal, because you want them to succeed.
Yeah. So they're really just focusing on serving their customer, on serving the host, while Airbnb is focusing more on building their own brand. Of course, Vrbo is focusing a lot on the brand, but it seems to push more on, okay, what do the hosts need? What are they suffering from right now? How can we fit into what they're looking for?
Yeah. I mean, come on. I mean, just Airbnb is super smart. I'm very impressed. And I think we're kind of talking about this, before the show, we're talking about their ambassador program, because as we all know, this year, it's all about supply, right? Vrbo is doing this, not just because they are a lovely company who wants people to be aware that they can earn more. They also know that the demand is here. For example, in the US, demand is booming. Their issue is more like, I need more supply. And in a way, they sort of know that the supply coming will be successful because there's so much demand. So that's good. But what Airbnb is doing as well, Airbnb also wants more supply. And they also, they let go 25% of their staff last year. A lot of account managers on the ground, for example. And what they are very good at, Airbnb, I think they've always been good at talking to entrepreneurs. They've helped people create Airbnb empires in cities, right? They empower a lot of entrepreneurs to launch their own business, a lot of property managers, right? But what they do here with their program called Ambassadors, they're telling independent entrepreneurs, not employees, independent people, they give them marketing materials, trainings, and telling them do online events, offline meetups to find, recruit, and train new hosts. And if when they get the first booking, you're good, and we're going to pay you, I don't know, $200, $300, $400 for one of these hosts, right? So suddenly you have like an army. So I don't know, you're probably too young for that, Maeva, but like in the US or in France, we have these Avon ladies, right? So
Oh yeah, I remember them.
right? It's like Tupperware or Avon, really. Like it's like this friend of yours in your city, in your little town, who would organize who would be like a rep,
Yeah.
not an employee, a rep for this, and they would try to recruit other people. That's what they're doing. It's very smart because it means suddenly in a little village in Bali, in Netherlands, in different parts, in different communities, you have all these people who are paid to find, nurture, and grow these hosts.
Yeah.
I think it's pretty smart because then you can really enter new markets. So they're not just. I think it's another strategy that's very interesting. Again, it's like a lot of people like online. We try to grow our businesses through affiliate programs, for example, referral programs. I think they're good, but a lot of like SaaS solutions are disappointed with the referral programs. They thought people would be interested, but what's very interesting, sometimes you actually realize that word of mouth or that your clients actually just refer you to someone. They did not even use a referral money. They could have one, or they didn't see it. Maybe didn't explain really well, right? So you have to make sure there's actually adoption of your program, by the way. So it's very important to work on the adoption of your features. But it also means that maybe thinking differently, like Airbnb did. Okay, these are maybe entrepreneurs themselves. Maybe my clients are entrepreneurs. Can I arm them and create a side business for them, which is recommending me? And I don't need everyone. Again, I'm not asking everybody for a referral. Then I'm just saying, hey, would you be interested in this? Okay, 5 people. Okay, 5 of you. I'm going to train you, and maybe then I can still use my referral scheme, basically, technically behind the scenes, right? But maybe I'm thinking differently. Or these are like salespeople I'm recruiting. So that could be a way as well to grow your business. Think that, for example, per country, right?
It's interesting that you say think different, because actually Apple did the same thing. When I was in college, I got hired as the on-campus representative for Apple. And what they did was they gave me a MacBook and they gave me an iPod. And they said, there were iPods at that time. And they said, go around campus, organize little events and show people all the cool things that you could do on your MacBook and get all the students to come. And it was exactly the same idea, right? Instead of a referral program for users, it's just like, go show people what they can do. That's probably why they're getting entrepreneurs, because it's inspiring for other people to say, oh, actually running an Airbnb can be a business. So it's a smart move, Airbnb. So all of this, if people want to learn more and follow Thibault, you can sign up for his newsletter, rentalscaleup.com/newsletter. Is that right?
Yeah, exactly. It's a free newsletter every week, trends, what are the big OTAs doing, what are the new tech. And, if you're a founder, for example, I'm happy talking with you and see whether we can feature you, for example, if you have, something new, interesting that you think the audience could care about. So reach out to me. I'm also on LinkedIn. You can find me easily.
Yes, also on LinkedIn and also on Pulse Nacori, the social media for vacation rentals. Thank you, Thibault. This has been such a nice conversation. Thank you for joining us today.
Well, again, thanks for having me. I think it's a great show. So all the best to you.
And if you enjoyed this episode, please do give it a like, subscribe, share, and we'll see you on the next one. Goodbye.